In our industry right now, AI is, I'd call it a productivity multiplier. It's not really a people replacement solution.
Hi, I'm Jayson Manship, host of Authentic and Agentic. Every week on this show, we break down what's happening in AI and what it means for how we work, lead, and live. Join me for a human-focused conversation that keeps you ahead of the curve. This is the Authentic and Agentic podcast on the IBJ Media Network. Hi, and welcome back to the Authentic and Agentic podcast. I'm your host, Jayson Manship. Before we get to today's interview, I want to spend a few minutes on what stood out to me in the news this week as it relates to AI. First up, commerce. Agentic commerce, to be more specific. Over the past 7 to 10 days, I think there's been a noticeable clustering of stories around agentic commerce. I've seen stories about Microsoft and Copilot, some movement from Google, some stuff on Shopify, even Amazon. And I think a lot of this is infrastructure work happening behind the scenes. While maybe none of it feels super flashy yet, I think that's kind of the point. What matters here, I don't think, is any single announcement. I think it's velocity. I think that there are duck feet under the water that are just pedaling. APIs talking to APIs, agents starting to build decisions, systems negotiating with systems without the human clicking a button. If you're in retail, e-commerce, finance, or really any business that involves online transactions, this is your reminder. Agentic commerce isn't coming someday in the distance. It's arriving incrementally. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to feel like it arrived all at once. It's coming, and it's going to come real fast. For my second story I want to dig into, this is about AI and K-12 education. And specifically, I want to look at what the state of Ohio is doing because I think the details here actually are pretty important. So Ohio recently rolled out a model AI policy for K through 12 schools, not just guidance or theory. The Ohio Department of Education and Workforce is providing a statewide policy that districts can adopt as is, or they can customize to their local needs. Either way, the state of Ohio is saying you as a school district must have an AI policy in place by July 1st of 2026. Now, that feels rushed, especially if you've been in education at all. But I genuinely like this approach. I think it respects local control. Instead of saying this is the statewide mandate, you must do it. I think it says here is a statewide policy we put in place. You can use it, but acknowledges that districts are different and areas are different. Geography, location, socioeconomic status, all sorts of things. But I think what's important is it also creates urgency. Now, comparing that to what we do here in Indiana, and again, nuance matters, Indiana does have AI guidance. The Indiana Department of Education, through its Office of Digital Learning, has published AI guidance and professional resources that's primarily designed to help educators think through classroom use and some classroom ethics and potentially some responsibility issues. And I think that's helpful. I think that's good. And I do think that the state and the policymakers or the folks overseeing the education program here in the state deserve some credit. The key difference, though, is I think that Indiana's approach thus far has been advisory, not mandatory. Indiana does not have a statewide policy for districts to adopt. There is no formal AI policy coming, no shared model policy, and importantly, no deadline, which means AI decisions are being made district by district, depending on leadership, depending on the leader's comfort level and interest and, all the other variables going into running and managing a school district. And I think that brings me to the harder question. So the state, like most states, has been pushing hard on broadband adoption, especially in some underserved communities across the state. That work, I think, is essential. You can't talk about AI in the classroom if students don't have reliable internet access. So as we think through getting high-speed internet in the classroom, is forcing an AI policy on maybe some already stretched school districts, is that a burden or a blessing? Is that asking a lot of them when they don't have the time to focus on things? Or is that helping them by putting together something that might make it easier for them? It might be both. I don't know. Be curious to hear your thoughts. I think mandates create pressure, but I think structure can also be a gift. So I think it's a give-take. And what I do like is a shared policy removes ambiguity. It gives educators permission to engage, and it ensures that no district is left pretending that AI isn't coming. right? Like most topics on this show, there's no real clear black and white answer. I don't think there's an AI policy at a state level or even the local level that's perfect. I think it's always going to be iterative. But I'll say this clearly, and you've heard me say it before: sticking your head in the sand and pretending AI is not coming is not a solution. AI is not a future problem for schools. It is a present reality for students, for schools, for teachers, for administrators. Kids are already using these tools. Teachers are already encountering AI generated work. Administrators are already fielding questions, and they don't necessarily have clear answers. So, whether you prefer Ohio's structured approach or Indiana's kind of guidance model, I think the direction has to be forward. Schools across the country need to start leaning in. And honestly, they probably should have started yesterday or last week or last year. My third story for today's news, I want to talk about something that's really not that AI. I really don't think it has much at all to do with AI and everything to do with being human. What I'm talking about is live sports. So if I predict the future and think about what's coming, I don't see a scenario where robots replace athletes. I don't see myself going and watching live sports with robots. I think it's much more interesting to see human beings compete, and I think it's something that we collectively get behind in today's culture and society. If you are a college football fan from here in Indiana, this is a pretty wild time to be alive. The Indiana Hoosiers are playing this weekend in the national championship football game, and I'm seeing Hoosier Nation light up like I've never seen it before. My friends from high school, college, professional career, any IU grads, any IU friends, huge alumni network. These people are having the time of their life. And I think it's a bookmark moment for us to kind of look back and say, this is what I was doing when IU was making their national title run. Moments like this change trajectories. When I think about Indiana University, I would bet money that they are at or near record highs for enrollment. Students want to go there because of the football program. And here's what's wild. They go there, they meet there, they marry there, they build their lives out of their college education, right? We saw this firsthand a decade ago with the Butler Bulldogs and their magical NCAA tournament runs. Butler's admissions went through the roof, and Butler University was put on a national stage, which impacted probably 50 people that I know and where they chose to go to college. In a world racing towards automation, I love these things that keep us fully human. So, a quick break. When we come back, I'll be joined by my friend Brady Whitesel, who just happens to be a lifelong Alabama Crimson Tide fan. Roll Tide. We'll be right back.
AI is transforming work, but too many organizations are stuck between potential and practice. Join TechPoint on February 3rd at Community Connect presented by IU Health, where Indiana's employers, innovators, and educators will come together to tackle AI adoption and the experience gap head-on. You'll hear what's working, connect to trusted resources, and leave with insights you can actually use. Reserve your spot now at techpoint.org/communityconnect.
Before we jump into today's show, I do want to take a moment to introduce today's guests, Brady Whitesel. I met Brady when I was running my very first digital agency called In Source Code. Back then, we were the nerds behind the scenes, the people that marketing agencies would lean on to build the stuff. They would write the checks, we would cash the checks, we would do the dev work behind the scenes. Brady at the time was the CEO of a digital marketing agency right here in Noblesville, and he and I quickly became friends. I'll talk more about this during the interview, but I can't overstate how important I think mentors are to each of us as we grow up in our career. What's interesting is that I don't think of Brady as a big brother or a father figure. I think of him as a colleague. He and I work together, right? And I believe the reason our relationship has lasted as long as it has is because of how similarly and frankly, how differently we see the world. We both want to build big things. We both genuinely enjoy the challenge of entrepreneurship and of scaling enterprises and of solving problems. And we both care deeply about serving and supporting other people in our professional journey. I think where we differ is probably how we approach that work, those goals, that vision. I'm the guy who sprints headfirst into the fire and figures out what to do from the inside of the burning building. Brady is the guy who says, hey, maybe we should plan this out before we just crash through that door. And honestly, that contrast has shaped my career in a pretty profound way. Brady has had probably more of an impact on my professional life and my life in general than almost anybody. maybe with the exception of my wife. Well, definitely with the exception of my wife. I'm incredibly grateful for Brady's wisdom, for his perspective, and for his willingness to lean in with me, even when my ideas include things like launching a podcast. Brady listens, he thinks, he helps me look at all sides of the equation, and he's ready to start running when I am. If you're listening to this and you feel stuck on the hamster wheel of running your business, or you suspect you're leaving some profit on the table, or that maybe you're just not confident in building a financial model that could eventually support a real exit strategy for you, I genuinely believe you should sit down and talk to my friend, Brady Whitesel. With that, let's get to the interview. Brady, welcome.
Thanks, Jayson.
We did it. To kick this off, I want you to share a little bit about what drew you into the world of fractional CFO, financials, financial modeling, accounting, all of those sorts of things. What started you there? And then I'd also like to understand, like, what about stepping into different businesses and helping shape them really motivates you?
Yeah, there's a good question. So I think in order to really answer that, you have to kind of go back and look at my career history. So went to Ball State back in the old days. Ended up in Alabama. So I have a degree in accounting.
Okay.
Ended up in Alabama, and I spent the first half of my career doing public accounting things. I did some industry work. Had an opportunity in 2003 to move back to Indiana and take on my first CFO role, which was a lot of fun. Had a couple different CFO roles, played a CEO role, began to realize what I really enjoyed doing is coming alongside entrepreneurs to help them grow and scale their companies, help them achieve their goals. Really enjoyed that. I've been doing that now for 10 years.
As a fractional CFO?
As a fractional CFO.
Since leaving the role of CEO or whatever. Okay. I heard you say that accountants tend to look in history, right? They look backwards.
Yeah.
And you helped me think through the concept of looking forward, like projecting what's going to happen and making some assumptions based on that. And I think that's a big part of what a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand, right? They're kind of in the weeds in the day-to-day. They're managing today's decisions, and they're not planning for that cash crunch that's coming, or that new hire they need to make, or whatever else needs to go into that. And so talk a little bit about your perspective there in regards to like the difference between bookkeeping and financial planning.
Yeah. So to your point, I mean, bookkeeping is kind of looking back. It brings you to the current period of time that says, here's how the company's performed. Financial planning is taking all of that historical data along with some new business assumptions, and it's advancing it, looking forward to say, here's how if we do these things over the next 2 or 3 years, we'll look like this at the end. We'll be rewarded with revenue and profit and more cash to do more things. And, you're always looking ahead. Entrepreneurs should always be looking ahead. There's not a whole lot of value in looking just in the rearview mirror.
Sure. Well, there's value in history, but probably just in lessons learned, right? But not necessarily running your business from the past. You need to know what's coming.
Right.
Yeah. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of them still operate on what I call bank account business management, right? Where they look and see how much cash they have in their bank account. And that determines their mood in a lot of ways. Right. It doesn't give them a whole lot of confidence in the future. If they have a ton of cash in their account, man, they're happy as can be.
Yeah.
And if it's empty, they're sad as can be. And that doesn't take into consideration the accounts payable, accounts receivable, upcoming expenses, seasonality, all those sorts of things.
Right. We're always, as CFOs, we're always trying to look into the future. So that is just total sense. Yeah.
So let me ask this question. I know you're not self-proclaimed. You're not an AI guru, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, maybe I am.
Maybe you are. All right. We'll find out. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was in this business, in kind of the number side of it, it feels like AI is starting to push stuff forward, right? I mean, I look at tools like QuickBooks. QuickBooks has some AI stuff baked into it. And I know there are bigger, more enterprise level software packages out there that CFOs use to kind of balance the ins and outs and cash flows of all the various accounts and things that they have to chart, right? So as more and more tools like this are adding AI kind of into their infrastructure and making it part of what it does, how do you see that changing the role of a CFO?
Well, so AI is being introduced into everything.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So, even if it's not AI, it's still being called AI.
That's right. Machine learning or whatever else.
Yeah. In our industry right now, AI is, I'd call it a productivity multiplier. It's not really a people replacement solution.
Okay.
We have a team right now of 7 in our firm. Every member of the team has what I call an AI-powered PhD level research assistant. Essentially, that assistant's fresh out of college. It has no real life experience. It can help us generate conclusions faster, but it can only do that with human prompting, right? The CFO's role doesn't really change. CFO's role is still centered on judgment, centered on accountability and decision making. So I think the role of the CFO didn't change. It's just we have some new tools that we can use. Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's really valuable perspective. And I know that that's one of the things that a lot of small business owners, medium-sized business owners, are trying to understand where AI fits into their business, right? And the conversation has been, does this replace jobs? I had a CEO call me last week and say, hey, I don't need to hire a controller or a CFO. AI can do it. And my perspective, actually, why don't you tell me your perspective on that?
Well, and we'll probably get into this a little bit. AI is not good at details.
Okay.
Right. It's good at visioneering. It's good at taking a vision and kind of filling in some of the details in the vision.
Yep.
But it is not effective at the details.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
If you ask AI, if you drop your financials into AI and you ask it to tell you, and you might already know, hey, what was our revenue for the year? It might take all 12 months of revenue and then add the total to it and double your revenue. And it will come off as 100% confident that this is your revenue and it's twice as much.
I share that confidence. That's a strength of mine.
Yeah.
Just say you know what you're talking about and people believe you.
Right. And AI is great at that.
Sure. The hallucinations are a real thing. I mean, that's a big problem for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as we think through that though, I'm really trying to understand how you think about embracing it. So maybe let me ask it this way, Brady. One of the things I've known about you for a long time, I think you and I we work very well together because I'm crazy and you make fun of me a lot and poke at me a lot because I just run into the fire without a strategy sometimes. One of the things I've always admired about you is that how you kind of slow down and think about it. You're not stuck in the sand, but you're evaluating a decision before you make it, right? Let's just make a decision and deal with the repercussions, right? So when you slow down and you think through scenarios like AI is impacting this world, how do you balance that thoughtful approach? If I'm a business owner or if I'm someone in this space that's trying to decide how hard to lean into AI or how hard to, watch it, meter it, track it, how do you think about that sort of stuff? How are you evaluating, whether to push these buttons, how hard to push them, where to wait and see how it plays out? How do you think about that kind of stuff as a leader of a company?
I think how you were brought up impacts how you think about, your business. How I was brought up and raised impacts how I think about things. And, growing up, we didn't have tremendous access to capital. We didn't have the ability to just throw money at bad business ideas and
hope they work
and hope that they work. Right. And so I've wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was really young, but had no means to capital. And so in order to try to convince somebody that they needed to give me money, I felt like I had to deliver like a proper, in the old days, an academic business plan in order to do that. And so I learned how to do that, right? And felt like I needed to be able to justify every dollar I was asking for. As a CFO, the stereotypical CFO, you'd probably look at and say, well, they're pragmatic, mostly unemotional, right? Maybe sometimes emotional, but mostly unemotional when it comes to decision making. A good CFO is able to lay out the good and the bad. They can tell the business owner how they think about things and then give you information to help you think about things. They'll tell you to sleep on it and then come back and make the decision tomorrow. when we're looking at AI and the decisions that AI is suggesting that you should make, I think it all comes down to discernment. Discernment is a skill that CFOs should have.
And does that come with wisdom? Does that come with being in the field for a while and seeing mistakes and seeing how
I think
judgments have played out?
It can. A lot of times you'll hear people say, well, discernment is really, knowing right from wrong, right? I think in this circumstance, discernment is knowing right from almost right. And
That's
AI
That's
is
very interesting.
Almost right.
Sure.
A lot of times.
Sure.
And so if you are saying, in the example where you had a CEO say, I'm just going to use AI to complete our financials. If you have a background in accounting, maybe you could pull that off theoretically.
Sure.
But you have to have the ability to hold AI accountable for its results. You have to know when it's telling you something that's almost right.
Yeah. It'll drive you all the way off the cliff and then apologize on the way down. Whoops, sorry, I missed it.
100%. And it'll say, oh, I'm so sorry about that. Your appendix was on the
other side. Yeah.
Yeah. So, AI is, like I said earlier, is very strong at vision expansion. It can fill into gaps. It's great at idea generation. It's great at speed. Its weakness, though, is precision, and its weakness oftentimes is factual accuracy. So you have to be able to validate or test the things that are coming out of AI to make sure they make sense.
So one of the things I talked about with Brian McGinnis, a podcast guest who's an attorney, he said that that industry, I assume similar to yours, is struggling with the idea of like junior versus senior, right? Because a lot of firms are choosing not to hire people right out of college or young people because quote unquote AI can do a lot of that. Yep. And so his fear was, without any senior or without any junior accountants, you don't have senior accountants, right? They need that time on target. And to me, that really has a lot to do with that discernment factor, all right? Seeing some of these things firsthand and experiencing it firsthand and understanding that when the law changes, these things change with it. That takes time.
Yeah.
You don't just like plug that into a chat bot and hope for the best.
Yeah. This kind of gets into a bigger conversation just about where social media has been and then in the pandemic. But we have the generation now that is just graduating is really, because of COVID, even was remote in high school some, right?
Sure.
They were remote in college some. And then they walked into a marketplace that's remote. And they've never been around older people who have been through some battles and been through some wars.
That's a great point.
They need to be mentored and coached, and they need to do that in person. They can't do it remote. So the generation, the young folks that are coming up now that are looking and seeking out opportunities to be in person, people who want to be near you or near other people that you're working with are going to level up, and they're going to be ready to go a lot sooner than those people who are working out of their bedroom in their parents' house still.
That's fair.
So,
and I do think that in those moments, I mean, if you're a young person, said this a million times, like being expert and on the cutting edge and leaning into the AI tools is a superpower,
100%.
right? Understanding how to use that. And so this is not a moment of like, put your head in the sand and hope it goes away.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Right.
Your point that I'm hearing you say is that it's not there yet, right? And it may be a while before it's there. And even if it does get there, humans still need to be involved in this conversation.
Well, I mean, the humans are the ones that actually have to be accountable. AI is not going to be accountable.
That's a great point. Right? What are you going to do? Turn it off or fire it or what do you do?
It can't easily land a plane, right? It can fly you through the air, but it cannot land a plane, right? So the younger generation, our team, we have a lot of young folks on our team, and they're doing great.
Yeah.
They're using AI to get answers to questions faster or to create a construct to consider decisions. And then they're able to have the conversations and communicate with their clients. But it's not just AI.
Sure.
There's a human prompting that has to go into it.
What I was really encouraged by when I told you I was doing this, that I was going to start teaching AI and doing workshops and classes and all this. You said, that's great. I'm going to send everyone in my company. And so I think literally every single person that works for you came to one of my workshops, including your partner.
Yeah.
And it was really neat to see because I think a lot of accountants like software engineers or lawyers, are very concerned about how this changes our business. And my read on that was that you said, look, we're going to embrace it, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. AI gets you past doing internet research for hours, and it gives you a general construct for how people think about things.
Yeah.
Right. So it can validate or invalidate how you're thinking about things and fill in the gaps, which is amazing.
Let me start with kind of an off-ball thing, and then we'll come to that a little deeper. One of the accountants on your team that works with me on one of my companies has been saying, man, I hate that you taught Brady how to create AI songs. Right?
Yeah.
Because I showed you, I don't know, months ago that you could create songs using AI, and now you're doing it to create the dumbest songs for every purpose and reason. At least that's what I'm hearing from the inside of
maybe we should create a song about that person.
So you're using a tool. I use a product called AIsong.org. I think you're using
Suno.com.
So you go to that tool, you type in any prompt you want, really.
Yeah.
And you say,
I mean, most of the time I will actually not use that tool to create song lyrics. I'll go to ChatGPT or another AI
bot of some sort.
Yeah. And say, hey, I want to create a song about Jayson and, Cecil in the studio and make it, 4 verses, and I want it to be in harmony and, whatever. And it'll spit out the lyrics, and then I can take the lyrics and drop them into the Suno app. Yeah. And I think it's fascinating. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I've played with it a lot. We have at Moonshot, my game store, we have a playlist of hundreds of songs that our manager downstairs creates. And we're just constantly, if you walk in the store, you're going to hear songs about Settlers of Catan and Wingspan and Monopoly and all sorts of stuff, right? Yeah. Because I don't know how many Pokemon songs
and
we have.
Sounds, it's studio quality. I mean, it's a little scary, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I just wanted to go off on that quick tangent because she was mentioning that you've been bombarding the team with wonderful, quote unquote.
She might have a song in her inbox.
Okay, when she gets back, she's going to have one. Perfect. All right, but let's talk about actually like leaning into some of this stuff. So the other thing I've really enjoyed watching you on is a few months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, I showed you some vibe coding tools. Specifically, I think it was Replit, which is a tool I use to build all sorts of cool stuff. So I showed you what Replit does. You immediately said, man, I had this idea floating around in my head forever that I would never have the budget or probably business model necessarily right out of the gate to go hire a developer to build. But I'm just going to tinker around and see what I can do.
Yeah.
And you did.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was leaving a board meeting in Atlanta. I was sitting on an airplane. I had good internet on this particular flight.
Sure.
And I thought, all right, I've always loved pizza. There was a time in Indiana, here in central Indiana, where we would have said we were in a pizza desert. There weren't a lot of great places that weren't franchised in the early 2000s. And so, at some point in the late, in like 2018, I actually hired a chef to come and teach me how to make pizza, right? In my house.
I love this story. Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Why? Well, I mean, when you miss having great pizza, from
Birmingham?
Birmingham, yeah. There's a great little Salvatore's pizzeria.
Salvatore's. Yeah. Let's try this.
Yeah, it's great. In any event, so I learned all the techniques. I learned so I got to the point where I'm a pizza critic now, right? I can go into a restaurant and I know like if they're sandbagging or if they're slacking or just mailing it in. I know if it's good or not.
Par bake versus homemade dough versus higher quality cheeses, that sort of stuff. You can detect that stuff now. Your 100%. Palate is that strong.
100%.
Okay.
Right. And so I sat on an airplane sitting in Atlanta waiting to take off. And I was like, all right, how would I draw out like the proper way to judge pizza? I've always thought of it like, would I be willing to travel for it? Like if I'm working in downtown Indianapolis.
Sure.
And I have a limited amount of time for lunch, would I be willing to get in my car and drive to the north side to get lunch at a pizza place and then go back? I mean, if I did, and it's not like a business meeting, but I'd go on my own, then it would have to be really good.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So that was one of the emotional ways to judge pizza. Would I be willing to drive 20 miles for it?
Okay.
So I asked ChatGPT to help me come up with a construct for this. And I gave it a few prompts on how I think about it. And then it started to fill in all these details.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is really good.
Okay.
I then went back to, and I don't code. I'm not a software engineer.
Keep going. Sorry.
I am not a software engineer. I worked with a software company in the early 2000s. I've seen great development teams, how they work. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use ChatGPT and I'm going to build out the requirements document on this. And so
to hand to a software firm, basically.
Theoretically, right? But what I did then is I took that and I dropped it into Replit.
And you said, here's the software I want you to build.
Here's the software I want you to build. Now, by the way, I think with that experience, if I were to start over today, I would probably not prompt it the same way. But I thought, I need to put the entire software requirements piece into Replit and let it build things out.
Yeah.
And I did that. I was fascinated by it. It like spun up a database in minutes and put together a preliminary UI in a few minutes. And I was like, wow, this is really kind of coming to life, And so you get within probably 20, 25 minutes, you've got enough that you can start like quality testing this thing. And that's
actual buttons and clicks and saving to the database and uploading photos and all that stuff is built in 25 minutes.
And some of it works and some of it doesn't work, right? And so what I learned through their process is that it's better just to give it like individual prompts. Mm-hmm. So I kind of learned how it works. And I worked on it off and on the weekends and in the evenings and sit on the couch for a little bit. And it's interesting because like in the old days, if you have an idea, you sit down with your developer and they literally take notes and then they go back and they code for a while and then they bring back and go, okay, here's version 1. And you start testing, you give a bunch of information. But this you can put away, you can come back later, and it picks up right where you left off as if it's been waiting the whole time. So I actually learned how to launch the website and I haven't figured out the SEO thing with Google. It's almost not working, but it's 71.pizza.
The URL.
The URL is 71.pizza.
Pizza. Why 71?
So it goes back to the idea of being willing to drive more than 20 miles to go to a place that's really good. So any restaurant in the score, 71 to say 100, would be all the places that you'd be willing to drive to.
Got it.
And so if it's less than 71, and by the way, there are a bunch of pizza that's not, it's like you might go down the street for it, but you would never drive for it, right? It's more of a convenience thing.
Yep.
So in this case, if it scores above 71, then you'd be willing to drive for it.
So you're not a software developer.
No.
You started with ChatGPT. You just said, hey, I'm thinking about building an app. Build me a scoping document.
Yep.
And then I pointed you to Replit. You went in there and you said, go.
Yep.
And then you've just been back and forth tweaking it ever since.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, Replit is agentic software development. It's vibe coding. It's not going to replace senior software developers, but it's similar to a chatbot like ChatGPT where you talk to it, right? Human language. Hey, I don't like this button. Hey, move this. Hey, change the colors. Hey, I need it to add this feature. I need the ability to upload a photo. I need the ability for a user to log in. And it just goes and builds those things, right? It makes a bunch of decisions behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And it just goes and does it.
I just by the way, I found it interesting because it would build something and I would say, hey, I need the button to be moved to here or to there. I want the color to be different, but I didn't know how to describe it. And so you gave me this great idea of, just take a screen capture. I was fascinated by being able to drop a screen capture in and it reads it entirely as if it's literally looking at it. And then you give it like 2 or 3 prompts and it's often doing it. And it's like a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah.
So
it's like dealing with humans, right? I mean, it's like doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is where more and more of the world's going to go. You're going to have micro tools like this, right? I agree with you that I don't think you're going to, my advice to that CEO that asked about hiring AI or building AI instead of hiring a CFO was similar to your advice, right? If you have a strong accountant in your team who can leverage the tools, maybe, right? But more than likely, you need to build the systems and the processes and all the parts and pieces. AI can help that happen, but you don't want it driving you off a cliff.
Well,
right?
so, AI is an element of that. In the circumstance where you have a CEO, if the CEO, your CFO should help you drive to your results. Like having an athlete that wants to be an Olympian, your CFO should be able to help you get where you want to go. AI
paint the roadmap.
That's right. Take you to the top of the mountain. Here's the vista. We're going to go to the other side here, and here's the road to get there. And here are all the things we're going to have to do on the way in order to get there. But when we get there, it's going to be amazing. And the CFO should be able to paint that picture to your CEO.
Yeah.
So AI can do some of that.
Sure.
But it can't execute.
That makes sense.
On that. And it doesn't hold you accountable on a monthly basis.
I think that's the real key, not being held accountable. Like if it's wrong, then what?
Yeah. If it's wrong, well, who are you going to blame?
That's right.
Right. You need humans to have that dialogue. Frankly, a good accounting back office is meeting every month. You're closing the books every month. You're looking at your financial performance on a monthly basis. You're updating your financial model on a monthly basis, and you're reflecting on whether things are working or not working, and you're iterating and making changes to your plan, and then you keep on going. You do that over and over and over again, and you build precision into your whole approach that way. So that's a little bit of a segue back to the CEO, but that's kind of how I think about it.
Well, I've just been fascinated because, you said from the beginning, like my team's going to learn this stuff. And so you sent them and said, we're going to lean in. You are obviously monitoring it and making sure that, your team is set up for the best way possible to represent your clients, which I think is great. But you're not just like outsourcing everything to the bots and hoping they figure it out.
It's not possible.
You're dabbling on your own with songs and this app. The app's really cool. I was blown away by what you built by yourself with no software development background.
Yeah, I am too.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
I'm surprised.
So I mean, just think about that for a second. If you're, let's say this was actually something you wanted to commercialize, right? You said, hey, this is my big idea. I'm going to go make this thing. Even if you called what you have today MVP, right? Maybe it's not enterprise level. Maybe it's not got all the bells and whistles or whatever else. But to get to this phase now, if you were hiring a software engineer to build it for you or a firm, right? Probably tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, so let's go back to, how I grew up, right? You would have to be able to generate or lay out what the revenue value proposition is in order to be able to put $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000 into it. You'd have to have an idea of what it could do, because if you're putting money into it, you have to be able to generate a return on that investment.
Makes sense.
Otherwise, you don't do it. This is so different. Replit is so different. You can spend a few $100s, and
if you had to guess with your app, like what do you think you spent so far?
I've spent $201.
I guess literally $200. So instead of tens of thousands of dollars to get to this point, you spent $200. Now, I want to say this again because I know software developers. Listen, this is not job replacement. This is not saying like
no. I need. If I were to do this for a living, I would need some help.
Senior engineer, scaling, databases, security, all the other parts that come with it. But to get to a function, I mean, listeners, you can go to 71.pizza right now and grade pizza. I've done it. You'll see some of my results on there. We went to Secret Pizza when I was out in Las Vegas, and my wife and I and my brother and sister graded it and loved it. It was really cool.
Well, that was the original idea. And then I was like, okay, what if we create like this pizza personality thing? Like, what's Jason's pizza personality, right?
Is that the slice ID thing I saw?
That's the slice ID,
that was
right?
Great.
So the concept is you can use a series of sliders and say, do I like the crust to be well done, or do I like it to be less well done? How much do I like a lot of sauce or a little bit? What kind of cheese do I like? And you can kind of lay this thing out, and it'll come back and it'll say, well, you like New York style. That's your.
I like Detroit style. That's what it told me.
Okay,
that's
so
my favorite.
Mine was a pizza from New Haven a pizza.
Okay,
which I had never heard of.
Okay,
so I've been asking people like, how do I make that? I'm very interested in, like, can I make that at home? Can I bring it back into my kitchen and try to make it here in Indiana, or do I need to go to Connecticut to have it?
Yeah.
But conceptually, what we can do with this app is you can take your pizza personality and you can compare it to restaurants that are here, and it can join you up and say, hey, you really need to go to this restaurant and try their pizza. You may have never heard that pizza before. So it's been kind of fun because I've been able to like explore some different avenues that I wouldn't have had the time or the money to do.
Importantly, though, this was a side thing. It was fun. It was interesting. Like you said, you give it a thing and you come back and check on it in 20 minutes or 2 days or whenever you have time, right? It's kind of like this asynchronous thing you can do.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
Do you see translating what you learned there into your day job? Are you going to start building some tools for your firm?
I've thought about it. Yeah. I thought about it. So we did use AI to build an application that kind of mimics how a chief credit officer in a bank would view financials and risk,
whether they would fund the loan or whatever.
Right. And so it actually will score almost like it'll give you a score, almost like a FICO score or something like that if it was your personal credit. But it kind of lays that out, and then it gives you like all this analysis to tell you why it thinks the way it thinks. And so it's like unveiling kind of the black box of banking.
Interesting.
So that's been fascinating. I know that, if it could potentially take weeks for you, if you needed to get a loan for your business, it might take weeks for you to give your financials to a bank and for them to take the time to analyze it and come back and tell you yes or no. We can upload the financials and some other information here, and within minutes we have a narrative, and we can talk through it and figure out how we need to improve your business to actually make it more interesting for a bank to look at you.
That's really helpful.
AI's been able to do that. That's been kind of fun. And there are things that we will continue to look at going down the road to see if we can cause AI to allow us to be more proficient at things.
Sure. I think that's great. That's the right approach. That's what I'm advising everyone on. It's just lean in, don't be reckless, but don't be scared.
Yeah.
Right. So let's end with this then. For all the founders, this primarily founders and business owners that listen to this podcast, what is one piece of advice you'd give them about building a resilient, like financially sound business? The world's moving fast.
Yeah.
Tech is moving fast. AI is changing the world instantly, overnight, whatever. If you were giving advice to founders or business owners, what would you tell them?
Yeah. Well, let's reflect back on the last decade or so, since 2015. We've generally been in an economy that has been up and to the right. It's been improving.
It really has been, yeah.
It has. Frankly, it's been rather easy to run a business during this time. And then COVID hit about 5 years ago, right? And we've had massive government stimulus that's caused disruption. We've had inflation. We've had tariffs. We've had regulation shifts. And now we have AI, right? So we have a lot of new disruptive things happening. And I think these are real disruptors, and ignoring these is not an option. I think at its core, running a business, in my humble opinion, is about discipline. We're in football season now. I mean, we're recording this. IU's going to play tonight.
Yep.
I would argue that a good analogy today is it's no different than running an elite football program. It's about discipline. Coach Cignetti is a disciplined guy. Nick Saban at Alabama was a disciplined guy.
You got to get that in there.
If we could get the current coach to be a little more disciplined, that would be amazing.
Brady's the only guy in Indiana that was sad about the IU win last week.
I'm rooting for him tonight.
Sure, that's right. Good answer.
Yeah. But a disciplined football team can win championships. A disciplined, talented management team can produce results and generate enterprise value. And so, the same applies for the back office. Closing the books every month, reviewing your financials every month, playing out the scenarios in your model with precision. utilizing AI to increase your decision-making velocity. These are all things that are critical going forward. I think as disruptive as some of these things have been, you can model these scenarios. You can play out, if I hire this person, or I need to make this capital investment, if my revenue goes up or if my revenue goes down, if I need to make another purchase of inventory, you can play all these things out and see how your cash is impacted. And then it helps you know if you need to get a loan, or if I need to go raise more money, or it's going to help you with your tax strategy. So just the discipline that we're talking about here doesn't really eliminate risk.
Sure.
But it dramatically improves or increases your odds of being successful long term.
Well, that's really important. And the companies that I've introduced you to, the founders or leaders I've introduced you to, have all benefited from looking forward instead of just looking at their bank account. I mean, quite literally, the folks that I talk to sometimes are 3, 4, 5, 10, $15 million companies that have almost zero financial construct, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing the basics.
Yeah.
And it's shocking to me.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the fastest way to create wealth and to create enterprise value is the term I just heard you use.
Right. Well, one of my favorite things that I'm very proud of in our tenure is we got to work with a company that was rather small to begin with, and it sold recently for 13 times EBITDA.
That's wonderful.
It was amazing, and very excited for them and to see their next chapter. And there's a lot of opportunity, especially if you're disciplined.
I think that's the key. Discipline, like Coach Sig.
That's right.
That's how you beat teams like Alabama. I think that's Brady's little takeaway lesson here.
That is the case.
Okay.
you know that Cignetti was one of Saban's
I do know
coaches
that.
back
I do
in the
know
old
that.
days.
Saban was the GOAT for sure.
Yeah, he still is.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see where it takes us. Yeah. Well, Brady, thanks for joining me. It's been a fun conversation. How do people find you?
Signal-CFO.com.
Okay. So go there and you can connect with him. And Brady loves lunch, especially pizza.
100%.
So if you're willing to buy his pizza lunch,
don't even have to buy me lunch. We'll just go get pizza. We'll have a good time.
Sounds great. Well, thanks again, Brady.
Thanks, Jayson.
Cheers.
See ya.
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to say thanks again to Brady and to TechPoint for making this show a reality. Now, what you saw today wasn't some big dev team on some big budget. Brady built this pizza app, 71.pizza, almost entirely by himself. He and I had a few lunch meetings, a few hours of some friendly guidance, and really it was him. It was a lot of focus and follow through. And as he said, he's not a software developer. He's not a product engineer. He's not a project manager. He just got into the vibe coding and pushed buttons to see what would work. And honestly, that's the whole point. Vibe coding lets you get in and get to MVP very, very quickly. If watching this video or listening to this audio made you think, man, I'd love to build something like that myself, head over to my YouTube channel. I just uploaded a video where I walk step by step through how to build an app using Replit, the tool that Brady used, the one I showed him. Next week, we're sitting down with Don Wettrick. He is the CEO of the Started Up Foundation. We're going to talk about AI in the classroom, entrepreneurship as a real path for young people, and how he's rebooting his podcast, which has featured guests like Adam Carolla, the 4-Hour Workweek's Tim Ferriss, and Gary Vaynerchuk. You're not going to want to miss my conversation with Don. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.